I'm Jessie and welcome back to my channel. Today we are talking about what I think are the best young adult fantasy books out there right now. I've read quite a lot, so I definitely have a list that I'd love to share with you today. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already. I release new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So let's get right into it. The top spot for best young adult fantasy books, in my opinion, goes to Scythe by Neal Shusterman. So this I feel like I talk about in every video I do, but I love it so much, so I'm going to talk about it again. This book is set in our world, but many years in the future. And it's in a world where there's no longer any natural causes of death. So no one dies naturally anymore. So in order to control the population so that we can sustain our world, there are people chosen in society that are trained to become what are called scythes. And those are trained in the art of taking lives. Sounds pretty dark, and it is, but it's told in such a way where it's just so intriguing, and I absolutely love this book. I think that it's definitely, even though the concept itself is very dark, it's not hard to read. The characters that you follow, there are two different characters who are training to become scythes. So you really go into the inner workings of this organization and kind of find out sort of where the morality and that like line between right and wrong are, and you kind of see different ways people have adopted their own philosophies and have interpreted the rules of scythes. It is so political and intriguing. I think the world building is fantastic, some of the best in any of the young adult fantasies that I've read. So if you haven't given this one a try, definitely pick up Scythe. The next book I have is definitely for those of you who like your books more character-driven, and that is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. So this book follows a group of boys who are looking for a dead king, and they live in a town where there are what are called ley lines, where you can find souls that have remained on Earth. So it's a very paranormal type of fantasy, not as high fantasy as some of the others on my list. So if you like more of that paranormal ghost story, this is a really good one. It also follows a girl who is she's the daughter of a psychic and lives with like all of these different psychics in her house, and I just think I personally love ghost stories and sort of the paranormal aspects of fantasy, so I really enjoyed this. And I also just loved the characters and the camaraderie between all of them. I thought it was so awesome how these characters got along, and the dialogue between them is great, and I wanted to be a part of their friend group. I loved it so much. So if you're looking for a character-driven novel with a bit of a paranormal fantasy aspect, then this one might be for you. The next book I have is The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. So this one follows a society in the future where there are only men in the society, and everyone can hear everyone's thoughts. So your head is constantly filled with what is called noise, because you're just hearing everybody's thoughts all the time. And this one character, it's a teenager named Todd. He is out in the forest one day, and for the first time in his life, hears silence. And in this world, silence is non-existent because you're constantly hearing thoughts. So he goes to investigate the source of the silence, and with that unravels kind of the secrets of this society, and you find out slowly with Todd why there are no women in this society and how everyone can hear everyone's thoughts, and it is so cool. I loved this book. I thought the world building was fantastic. I thought the characters were fantastic. Todd is such an awesome narrator, and it's told in such a way where this book is written from his perspective and is written in his sort of language that he speaks. So it's written very, it's a very interesting form of writing, and I don't know how else to explain it. So if you're looking for something that's definitely more plot driven, very fast paced, sort of a mystery where you're learning along the secrets of the world with the characters, you would probably love The Knife of Never Letting Go. The next book I have is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. So this duology is one of my favorite young adult fantasies. It's definitely high fantasy, which means it's not set in our world. It's set in a completely made up world by Leigh Bardugo, and it's all Russian inspired. So it's a really cool aesthetic for this world that you're reading throughout. And it's about this group of characters who's definitely a motley crew of characters who are trying to pull off this heist. So it's a very like Ocean's 11 in a fantasy world with kids. It's pretty cool. I really enjoyed the characters in this one, and I thought the world was really interesting. It was definitely unique and unlike anything I've read before. I think I read this one before I read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I know that they are set in the same world, so there's definitely nods to the Shadow and Bone trilogy in this duology, which I didn't pick up on at first. And I think I recommend this one over Shadow and Bone, only because of how Shadow and Bone ended. I could get into a whole nother video just on that, but I think that the Six of Crows and then Crooked Kingdom is the sequel. They are excellent. Both of them definitely exceed expectations in terms of what I was expecting out of the story and the characters. I love this one, and I know that many of you out there do as well, so if you haven't read this already, definitely pick it up. The last book in my list of favorite YA fantasy reads is the Clockwork Angel trilogy. It's called the Infernal Devices trilogy. Clockwork Angel is the first in this trilogy, and it's by Cassandra Clare. So this book I read after I read The Mortal Instruments, which I was not a huge fan of The Mortal Instruments. I thought it read a little young, and I felt like I was just too old for the target audience. I still enjoyed it. It was still a good series, just not my favorite. But Clockwork Angel and the Infernal Devices as a whole, totally different story. This I thought was excellent. The characters I loved, which I can't say the same about the characters in The Mortal Instruments, but this one had awesome characters. We're once again back in that Shadow Hunters world, which I did enjoy from The Mortal Instruments, so picking that back up here, I really liked that. And then it's also set in this Victorian era, which is really cool to read about. So if you haven't read this one and you are interested in starting Cassandra Clare, I actually recommend this Infernal Devices series before The Mortal Instruments. And then if you love this, definitely move on to The Mortal Instruments. But this one, just the characters, so good. So highly recommend Clockwork Angel. And that's all I've got for you today. Those are my favorite YA fantasy reads. What are some of yours? I'd love to hear in the comments down below what your favorite YA fantasy reads are. I've read a lot. There are some that definitely missed the mark, but that list of books I highly recommend. I would vouch for them all day, and I recommend them for any age. So even if you're an adult, like I am, you will still enjoy those. They've got characters that are relatable. They're very fast-paced. Most are plot-driven. So highly recommend. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!